The One-Page Financial Plan, A Simple Way to Be Smart About Your Money, by Carl Richards. Picture yourself at the vet's office. Your dog, your absolute best friend, is sick. You're anxious, exhausted, and desperately want him to be okay. The vet runs some tests and returns with a serious expression. "All right," she says, "you have 3 options." And suddenly, your world starts spinning. Option 1 involves treatments you can't comprehend. Option 2 comes with side effects you don't understand. Option 3 is something completely different. As she explains each complex detail, panic floods through you. Your brain feels like it's short-circuiting. You raise your hands and interrupt. "Stop, please, if this were your dog, what would you do?" She tries walking you through the options again. You stop her once more. Finally, looking her straight in the eye, you practically beg, "Please, stop giving me options I can't evaluate. Just tell me what to do." This feeling of overwhelming paralysis when faced with too many choices? That's exactly how most of us feel about our finances. We're drowning in thousands of mutual funds, confusing retirement plans, and conflicting advice from so-called experts screaming at us from every screen. The sheer volume of information is so crushing that doing absolutely nothing seems like the only reasonable response. But here's the thing. Real financial planning has almost nothing to do with that noise. What if the secret to being smart with your money wasn't about picking the next hot stock or building a massive spreadsheet, but simply about answering one profoundly simple question? Today, we're exploring a book that cuts through all that complexity and gets to what truly matters. It's called The One-Page Financial Plan, written by Carl Richards, a financial advisor who learned his most valuable money lessons not from textbooks, but from the painful experience of losing his own home. This book has sold countless copies worldwide because it offers something we're all desperately searching for: clarity. By the end of our time together, I promise you'll have a simple, powerful framework for making every financial decision for the rest of your life. You'll learn how to align your money with your values, transforming it from a source of stress into a tool for living well. This isn't just about money, it's about your life. So let's dive in. Our journey begins with a fundamental truth the financial world seems to have forgotten. Before you can create a meaningful plan, you need to know why you're planning in the first place. Think about it. We walk into a financial advisor's office wanting a prescription. We want them to say, "Put your money here, buy this fund, save this much." We want the solution right now. But that's like a doctor writing a prescription before asking about your symptoms. It makes no sense. Real financial planning starts with a diagnosis. And that diagnosis begins with a single question. It's the most important money question you'll ever answer. Why is money important to you? Now that might sound a bit soft, maybe even touchy-feely. You might be thinking, just tell me what to do with my 401k. But stick with me, because this question is the foundation for everything else. The author shares a powerful story about a couple he worked with, Sarah and Mark. They were smart, successful, and driven. Sarah was a high-powered emergency room doctor. When Carl asked them this question, Sarah gave the answer most of us would: freedom. It's a good answer, but it's vague. So he pressed gently, "What does freedom mean to you?" She thought harder. "Flexibility," she said. "Okay," he replied, "and what's important about flexibility?" There was a long pause. Then, her voice filling with emotion, she said, "I just want some time." He asked one final question. "Let's pretend you're there. You have more time. What's important about that?" After a few moments of silence, Sarah looked at her husband, then back at Carl, and said something that surprised even herself. "I really want to have a family, and I haven't even had time to think about it." In that moment, everything changed. The goal was no longer about finding the best investment return. It was about creating the time and space for Sarah to start a family. Suddenly, every financial decision they made had a purpose, a true north. It wasn't about chasing a number. It was about building a life. This is the power of asking why. It uncovers the deep desires and values we're often too busy or too scared to confront. Once you know your why, You have a lens for viewing every financial choice. Does this purchase move me closer to my why or further away? Does this investment strategy support what matters most to me? So before we go any further, this is your first task. Sit down, perhaps with a trusted friend or partner, and ask yourself that question. Keep digging until you get past vague answers like security and arrive at something concrete and real like, I want my children to have more opportunities than I did, or I want the freedom to volunteer in my community. This answer is the first and most important part of your one-page financial plan. It's your statement of purpose. Once you know why you're planning, the next step isn't to create a rigid 50-page document filled with precise predictions about your utility bills in 2043. That kind of planning is built on a fantasy, the fantasy that we can predict the future. And the fear of getting the prediction wrong is what paralyzes most of us into doing nothing. Instead, the author invites us to do something that might sound scary at first, but is actually incredibly liberating. He invites us to guess. That's right. The second step is to simply guess where you want to go. Think of it like planning a European vacation. You could create a minute-by-minute agenda, rushing from one tourist trap to the next. Or you could have a general direction. We'll start in Italy and head north, and leave room for the unexpected. That way, when you stumble upon a charming little cafe that's not in any guidebook, you have the flexibility to sit and enjoy it. Life, like that vacation, rarely follows a straight line. So we don't need perfect goals. We just need a direction. You're not committing to the guess itself. You're committing to the process of guessing and then adjusting as you go. This simple shift in mindset releases you from the pressure of getting it right. Start by listing a few goals that align with your why. Maybe it's being on track for retirement by age 60. Maybe it's setting up an emergency fund covering 6 months of expenses. Maybe, like the author's friends Henry and Elizabeth, it's a wild dream you've never dared say out loud, like taking 6 months off to travel the country in an RV with your kids. For each goal, make 3 simple guesses. 1. What is the goal? Be specific. Not just save for college, but save enough for a state university. 2. When do you want to achieve it? 3. How much will it cost? Don't get stuck here. If you don't know the exact cost of college in 18 years, make an educated guess. If you're not sure how much you'll need for retirement, start with a simple question. If I retired today, how much would I need per month to live comfortably? Write that number down. It's not set in stone. It's a starting point, a destination on your map. As you list these goals, you'll inevitably find you have more goals than resources. This is where your why comes back into play. It becomes your system for prioritizing. When you have to choose between 2 goals, you simply ask, which one is more aligned with what's most important to me? For Sarah and Mark, their goal of taking a big trip every summer was competing with their most important goal of starting a family. When viewed through the lens of their why, the choice was easy. They decided to opt for less expensive vacations for a few years. It wasn't a sacrifice, it was a conscious choice in service of something they wanted more. Now we have a direction. We know our why, and we have a rough map of where we want to go. The third and final step of this discovery process is perhaps the most emotionally difficult. It's time to get really clear about your current location. You can't use a map if you don't know where you are. In financial terms, this means creating a personal balance sheet. It's a simple exercise, but many of us avoid it because we're afraid of what we might find. Looking at our finances forces us to confront past mistakes, the credit card debt that piled up, the student loan we've been ignoring, the purchases we regret. The author knows this feeling intimately. He shares his own painful story of denial. As the housing market was collapsing, he, a financial advisor, couldn't bring himself to face the reality that he was going to lose his house. The anxiety made him physically ill. But the moment he finally sat down and said, okay, how bad is it, something shifted. As difficult as it was to face the numbers, The act of facing them gave him a sense of control. Clarity, even when painful, is the first step toward progress. So this is your next task. Take out a blank piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, list everything you own, your assets. This includes your bank accounts, the estimated value of your home, your investment portfolios. On the right side, list everything you owe, your liabilities. This includes your mortgage balance, credit card debt, student loans, car loans. Be honest and precise with the numbers on the right. No guessing allowed here. Then add up your assets and subtract your liabilities. That number is your net worth. It doesn't matter if that number is big or small, positive or negative. The number itself is not a judgment of your worth as a person. It's simply your starting point, your "you are here" dot on the map. This process isn't about shame or blame. It's about awareness. Without this clarity, you'll never be able to build a bridge from where you are to where you want to go. And now, with these 3 pieces of information, your why, your goals, and your current location, you're ready to create your one-page financial plan. Grab a simple index card and a thick marker. The author suggests a thick marker for a reason. It forces you to be broad and simple. You can't get bogged down in tiny details. At the very top of the card, write your why. This is your statement of values, the reminder of what this is all for. For the author and his wife, it was time with family doing things we love. Below that, write down your 2 or 3 most important financial goals, the big things you need to do to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. For them it was 1. Fully fund all retirement accounts each year. 2. Fund the kids' education accounts every year. 3. Save everything else for a house. That's it. That's the entire plan. It's not a detailed budget. It doesn't mention specific mutual funds. What's most important about the one-page plan is what's not on it. It's not an instruction manual for assembling furniture with 50 pages of complex diagrams. It's the picture on the front of the box. It's the simple, elegant snapshot that reminds you what you're building and keeps you on track when you get lost in the details. With this plan as our guide, we can now turn to the practical mechanics of money: spending, saving, and investing. Let's start with spending and the dreaded word, budgeting. Most of us see budgeting as punishment, a financial diet designed to make us feel guilty about every dollar we spend. But this is the wrong way to look at it. The author, quoting the founder of You Need a Budget, offers a transformative reframe: budgeting equals awareness. Its purpose isn't to restrict you, but to make you conscious of where your money is going, so you can intentionally direct it toward things that align with your one-page plan. The process is simple. For at least 1 month, track every single penny you spend. It doesn't matter if you use an app, a spreadsheet, or a small notebook. The goal is to see the reality of your spending habits. You might be horrified, like the author's friends who discovered they were spending an enormous amount on food. But that horror quickly turned into a powerful realization. For them, they realized their high food budget was actually in perfect alignment with their values, since their careers and lives revolved around food. They wouldn't change a thing. For others, this process reveals a painful gap between what we say is important and how we actually spend our money. If you find a large gap, one powerful tool is the spending cleanse. For a set period, a few days, or even a week, try to spend no money at all, outside of essentials you've planned for. Ride your bike to work, eat meals at home, find free entertainment. This isn't a long-term solution, but it's a powerful reset button that shocks you out of mindless spending habits and brings crystal-clear awareness to the difference between needs and wants. This new awareness naturally leads to the question of saving. The common advice is to save a fixed percentage, like 15% of your income. But that's a one-size-fits-all rule for a life that's uniquely yours. Instead, the author offers a more humane and flexible guideline: save as much as you reasonably can. What is reasonable? Only you can define that, based on your one-page plan. It requires a thoughtful balance between planning for your future self and living a life that's happy and sane today. One of the biggest obstacles to saving is our desire for instant gratification. We struggle to connect with our future selves. Brain scans have shown that when we think about ourselves in the future, our brain acts as if we're thinking about a complete stranger. To combat this, the author suggests a simple trick, the 72-hour test. The next time you feel the urge to make an impulse purchase online, instead of clicking buy, just leave the item in your shopping cart for 72 hours. More often than not, when you return 3 days later, the emotional urgency will have faded, and you'll realize you didn't need it after all. This simple pause creates a buffer between impulse and action, saving you from countless purchases that don't align with your plan. Once you've freed up some money through mindful spending and saving, we arrive at the most intimidating topic of all, investing. This is where the financial world becomes a full-blown carnival, with experts shouting, bells ringing, and everyone trying to sell you a ticket to the next hot ride. The most important thing to understand is the difference between investing and speculating. Speculating is trying to pick the next Google, timing the market, or buying a stock because you love their new phone. It's a gambler's game, and it's the reason so many people feel burned by the stock market. Real investing is different. It's not exciting. It's scientific. In fact, when done right, it should be boring. As Warren Buffett said, investing should be like watching grass grow. There's a huge body of academic, peer-reviewed research on how markets work, and it all points to a few simple, powerful principles. First, diversify your portfolio. This is the old wisdom of not putting all your eggs in one basket. Instead of trying to pick the one winning company, you should own a tiny piece of thousands of companies all over the world. The easiest way to do this is through low-cost, diversified mutual funds or index funds. That way, if 1 or even 100 of those companies fail, it will barely affect you. You're no longer betting on a single horse. You're betting on the entire concept of human progress and capitalism. Second, keep your costs low. Researchers have searched for decades for a variable that can predict how well a mutual fund will perform in the future. They found only one: cost. The less you pay in fees, the more of your money you get to keep. It's simple math. Third, understand the relationship between risk and reward. There's no such thing as a high-return, low-risk investment. It doesn't exist. Generally, the more risk you take on, the higher your potential return. Your job is to find the level of risk that aligns with your goals and your ability to sleep at night. So, what does this look like in practice? While every portfolio should be tailored to an individual's goals, the author provides a solid, good enough, default portfolio. It's a 60/40 split. Take any money you'll need within the next 10 years and keep it safe in savings accounts or CDs. Of the money you won't need for more than 10 years, put 60% in the stock market diversified between U.S. and international index funds, and the remaining 40% in safe, low-cost bonds. Is this the perfect portfolio? No. A perfect portfolio is one that's custom-built for you. But, as the founder of Vanguard, John Bogle, once said, "There might be advice that's better than this, but the amount of advice that's worse is infinite." This simple, diversified, low-cost approach will put you ahead of the vast majority of investors who are chasing hot tips and paying high fees. Once a year, you'll need to rebalance your portfolio. This is a simple but powerful discipline. If stocks had a great year and now make up 70% of your portfolio instead of 60%, you sell some stocks and buy more bonds to get back to your 60/40 split. This forces you to do what's emotionally very difficult: sell high and buy low. It's an automatic, unemotional way to maintain your strategy. This brings us to the final and most important piece of the puzzle. You can have the most brilliant, perfectly crafted plan in the world, but it's utterly useless if you don't do one thing: behave, for a really long time. Financial success has less to do with how smart you are and more to do with how you behave. We're all wired with cognitive biases that make us want to do exactly the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. When the market is soaring, greed makes us want to buy high. When the market is crashing, Fear makes us want to sell low. This is the big mistake, and avoiding it is the single most important job of an investor. How do we fight against our own flawed wiring? We set up guardrails. First, have a plan. Your one-page plan and your investment allocation are your anchors in a storm. Before a crisis hits, write down why you chose your plan. This is called an investment policy statement. It can be a simple paragraph reminding yourself of your long-term goals. When you're tempted to panic, read it. It's a message from your calm, rational self to your emotional, panicked self. Second, automate good behavior. Set up automatic transfers to your savings and investment accounts. Don't force yourself to make the decision to save every single month. You'll always find an excuse not to. Make the right choice the easy choice. And finally, perhaps the most powerful guardrail of all is to get help. Not because you aren't smart enough, but because the person helping you isn't you. A real financial advisor, one who diagnoses before prescribing and is transparent about fees, acts as a behavioral coach. Their most important job is to stand between you and the big mistake. They're the objective, unemotional voice of reason when your own emotions are screaming at you to do something foolish. In the end, this whole process, from asking why to building a portfolio, isn't about becoming an expert investor. It's about creating a simple system that allows you to stop thinking about money all the time. It's about setting up a plan, automating it, and then leaving it alone so you can get back to the real work of living a life that's rich in the things that truly matter. What strikes me most about the one-page financial plan is its profound humanity. In an industry that thrives on complexity, fear, and the illusion of secret knowledge, this book is a breath of fresh air. It's a quiet, reassuring voice that tells us the truth. You already have everything you need to be smart about your money. The answers aren't out there in the market. They're inside of you. The book's central idea that your personal values must be the starting point for any financial plan is revolutionary in its simplicity. We spend so much of our lives chasing goals that society tells us we should want: the bigger house, the fancier car, the impressive job title. We work incredibly hard, telling ourselves that one day all this effort will pay off and we'll finally be happy. But Carl Richards gently asks us to pause and question that assumption. What if we started with happiness? What if we started by defining what a rich life actually means to us, and then used our money as a tool to build that life, starting today? This approach transforms financial planning from a cold mathematical exercise into a deeply personal act of self-discovery. It's no longer about winning a game or beating the market. It's about closing the gap between the life you're living and the life you want to live. The most powerful lesson, for me, is the emphasis on behavior over knowledge. We live in an age of information overload, yet we're not any wiser for it. We think the key to success is learning more, but the book argues that the key is behaving better. It's about having the discipline to stick to a simple, boring plan for a very long time, especially when our emotions are telling us to abandon it. That's a lesson that applies far beyond our bank accounts. It's a lesson for life. So how can you put these ideas into practice right now? Here are 3 simple actions you can take this week. First, find a quiet 15 minutes. Take out a piece of paper, and at the top, write the question: why is money really important to me? Don't stop at the first answer. Keep asking why until you feel a flicker of emotion. That's when you know you've found something true. This is your compass. Second, create your simple balance sheet. 2 columns: what I own and what I owe. No judgment, no shame, just clarity. This is your map. It shows you where you're starting from. And third, automate one small thing. Open your banking app right now and set up a recurring transfer of just $10 from your checking to your savings account. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is building the muscle of automation. You're making your future self a promise and putting a system in place to keep it. That was a summary of the one-page financial plan by Carl Richards. We've journeyed through the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a signpost. The real transformation happens when you walk the path yourself. It's in the quiet moments of reflection, when a particular story or a simple phrase from the author connects with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has stirred something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change your relationship with money and, more importantly, with your life. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to Billionaire's Bookshelf. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.